All right. Hi, and welcome everyone. My name is Jason Padilla, and I'm your technical host for today's webinar. Thank you all for joining us today in this special webinar hosted by ASPB's PUI section, the primarily undergraduate institution section. So thank you all again, and we look forward to having this really awesome conversation. Before we get started, I would like to give a special thank you to all our ASPB members who are attending today's webinar. Your ASPB membership dues help support make this webinar possible. For those of you who have not yet joined ASPB, you can do so today using the discount code and save 10%. Just use the discount code %10. ASPB member have access to a lot of different benefits and resources, and you can learn more about all of those by visiting aspb.org. So there are a lot of webinars that have been recorded. So if you're looking for additional content, whether it be scientific content or whether it be career-related content, there's a lot of different webinars that's been recorded and posted on Plante YouTube channel. So be sure to take some time and explore those. Once this webinar is done and processed, this will be added to the Plante library and specifically to the PUI playlist maybe about a day or two, so maybe sometime next week. Before we kind of dive deep and I turn it over to Dongfang, who's moderating today's conversation, I just want to highlight a few logistical details before we get started to make sure that you can get the most out of your attendance today. If you're experiencing technical issues, please let us know about those by using the Q&A box, or you can email me at jpd@aspb.org. If you have questions for our panelists, please use also the Q&A box. There will be a Q&A portion of this webinar. And so we want to make sure that we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. So make sure that you drop them in the Q&A box. And if you have trouble connecting or need to leave the webinar early, as I mentioned, we are recording this webinar and will be made available later on. So you can tune in and watch. And then if you have any colleagues that are not able to join today, you're able to share that link so they can also take advantage of this great content and watch after the fact. So without further ado, I am now going to turn over to our PUI section's content manager, Dongfang, who will moderate today's sessions. So take it away, Dongfang.
Thank you, Jason, for the introduction and for organizing this webinar. Hi, everyone. I'm Dongfang Wang. Currently, I'm a member of the ASPB PUI Steering Committee. So the PUI section is a community where we support each other to advance undergraduate education and research. If this is something that you're interested in doing, please join us. We're open to any plant biologist at any career stage and from any higher ed institution. So we generate lots of resources for this community. This is one of our annual events. And in addition, we also host monthly virtual events online. So if you have any questions, want to connect with us, please join our monthly virtual event. So if you want to get notified when we release new content or release new live events details, please follow ASPB PUI on LinkedIn, Blue Sky X, or Instagram. Also use the hashtag PlantingPUI. Next slide, please. So for today's webinar, I'm very excited to introduce a great collection of PUI faculty member as our panelist. So I'm going to introduce myself first. I'm Dongfang Wang, a faculty member from Spelman College. Spelman is at the heart of Atlanta, and we are a liberal arts college and also one of the oldest HBCU. So I'm going to turn this next to, perhaps we should just go with the sequence on the slide. So Zoe, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to join this webinar. My name is Zoe Diaz-Martin. I am also at Spelman College. I'm an assistant professor in my third year.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Coate. I'm a visiting faculty member at Reed College, which is in Portland, Oregon. Reed is a small liberal arts college with one Master's of Liberal Studies program, but otherwise it's exclusively undergraduate. We have about 1,300 students.
Sanju, I think you're muted.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry about that. I am Chengada Barta, and I am a professor at Missouri Western State University. We are an open enrollment liberal arts college in Missouri. And I have been at Missouri Western for the past 13 years.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sanju Sanjaya. I'm at West Virginia State University. So West Virginia State University is one of the 1890 HBCU and also land grant university. Our mission is to work on agriculture research, extension, and teaching.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Thines. I'm really excited to be here. I'm at the University of Puget Sound, which is in Tacoma, Washington, just south of Seattle. And I also serve on the PUI steering committee.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the round of introduction. So this webinar, our goal is to help graduate students and undergraduate graduate students and postdocs to secure PUI faculty position. So before doing that, I thought the first thing to do is probably help our audience figure out whether the PUI career path is the right fit for you. And after that, we're going to give you an insider view of the application and interview process. And in the end, we're going to answer audience questions. So if you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A button below. So we are going to start with our first question. Okay, so most of us probably had our training at a R1 institution. So R1 labs and PUI labs are a bit different. So that's like our first question for our panelist is from your experience, how does a PUI lab differ from an R1 lab, and what are the pros and cons?
I'll just jump in first, I guess. There are a lot of differences. I think the most impactful difference is how the work gets done. So at an R1 school, the bulk of the work is done by graduate students and postdocs. At a PUI, it's me, it's mentored undergraduates, and it's collaboration. So that changes how I strategize in working through projects.
I would add to what Brian said here that we operate with much smaller budgets, which also means that you have to be very creative with how you manage your budget. There are though lots of opportunities to compensate for that, for example, through collaborations and using shared instrumentation, shared equipment.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Zoe.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think kind of to add on a little, given the differences that folks have touched on, a reality is that research, I think, moves much slower, and kind of coming to terms with that slower pace can, be a challenge, but is important, certainly.
I was just going to add, sort of adding to this general theme, is that also there's going to be generally less continuity in terms of the institutional memory or lab memory. Often working with students for just a summer or a year, and so there's a lot of turnover, and consequently it's kind of incumbent on you to be training and retraining more probably than a PI at a R1 is doing.
So I would like to add, unlike R1 institutions, most of PUIs, we do not have like a shared core facility, for instance, genomics or metabolomics, etc. So one of the thing is we have to be very creative in collaborating with folks in R1 institutes, get the things done. This has been working very well for us.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. So I use the core facility at Georgia Tech, which is a neighboring institution. So I'm also wondering, like, are there specific aspects about managing a PUI lab that you find rewarding?
I can sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll jump in there. Yeah, I think the flip side of, you're working with undergraduates, so they're less experienced and you're kind of often training them from the ground up, but they're also, at least here, tend to be very enthusiastic about it, and you get it's pretty fun and rewarding to teach them things that they've not been exposed to before, and they pay back in other ways than experience and productivity with enthusiasm and kind of a joy of doing things for the first time.
I'll follow on with that. And I think working with undergrads and mentoring them and watching them grow and become mentoring for the new students in the lab. And to make it all work, I need to be in the lab working too. And I really like to, be at the bench. And I think if I was at an R1 school, I'd probably be in my office writing a lot more.
I really enjoy that it gives me opportunities for creativity and flexibility, because over the past 13 years, I really had to rethink my entire research agenda and branch out to smaller, manageable projects that we could conclude within a semester, or perhaps multiple semesters, which gave the students ownership of the project, which makes them extremely, extremely happy, and even the opportunities to carry this research from the conception up until perhaps even to the publication stage. So that required a lot of creativity and collaborations and working with colleagues, working together with the students. But in the same time, it allows for flexibility as well, to branch out to areas that perhaps I was not so much focused on when I was a postdoc before I got this position.
Yeah, I agree with all that, especially Brian's point of actually being in the lab doing experiments myself. That's the part that I really enjoyed doing. And also because PUI, we often can't really bring in postdocs to do our projects. So as a PI, I actually have to learn lots of new things myself. So through this process, I learned to do all different things that I haven't done before, and that keep it interesting. So I'm also wondering, like, what are the funding mechanisms at your institution? Like, how do you get support to carry out your experiments? So if you could elaborate on either external funding or perhaps internal funding mechanisms.
So one of the things, I've been over the year taking advantage of our 1890 land grant specific projects, for instance, like capacity building grants from USDA and also from National Science Foundation. They have varieties of specific, grant opportunity for folks working in HBCU. So, for instance, in our case, we have been accumulated over $10 million, specifically focusing on programs dedicated for 1890 HBCU or HBCU. I think that's been working very well as long as, science is good and, very creative, objectives. And also in addition, we do have like a seed funding. It's a small amount, but it is good enough to kickstart small projects led by students.
I
Um,
can, oh, sorry.
no, no,
Go ahead,
please.
Feng.
No, I'm actually going to ask who would like to go next.
So I will jump here in and I will put in a plug for ASPB because there are lots of opportunities to obtain funding from ASPB as well for both education, teaching geared projects as well as for research, and there are opportunities for students. And I have found, for example, several of my students have obtained the summer undergraduate research grant from ASPB over the years, and we have found that extremely rewarding, so that allowed the students and myself to conduct little projects that actually led to publications. So societies are extremely generous in funding some of our research, so one should consider those.
So I'll jump in quick. So there are federal funding mechanisms. I have an NSF grant right now, which allows me to do probably a little bit more than I wouldn't otherwise do. With most of those applications, there's space to explain how you're going to do things with undergraduates and the benefits that those funds will have on undergraduates. Obviously, that's all in a little turmoil right now, so we'll see. But one thing I didn't realize when I started was that there are a lot of internal mechanisms that students can apply for. So like $100 here, $100 here, I can apply for maybe $500. And you can put that all together and buy bigger things. And I think that's true at a lot of schools too.
Yeah, so people have mentioned sort of the necessity of collaborating with researchers at other institutions, and that's certainly a big thing. And being a small part of a bigger grant is one way that I've supported my research. So I'm part of a larger NSF grant that's a multi-institution thing that I obviously couldn't pull off by myself, but I have my little niche part of it and get some funds through that. At Reed, I'm not sure how typical this is at other places, but at Reed, for one, all students do a year-long senior thesis project, and the biology department here provides funds for those projects, supply money for the students to carry out those projects. So to the extent that I can, align my thesis students' research with my own research, that's a funding mechanism for keeping things moving along. And we also have funds for summer research fellowships as well.
Yeah, those are all great. I feel like we should hold another webinar on just how to get funding support for PUI. So there are lots of different mechanisms, and it's certainly very feasible to get enough support to get your research going. So the next question is time. So PUI usually have a higher teaching load. So what's the teaching load like at your institution? How do you find time to do research like on top of your teaching?
I'll say this is kind of a continual struggle for me anyway. I'm, still pretty early on. I'm just starting my third year, so still kind of finding the balance between everything. My sense is that the first couple of years can be really challenging as you're prepping new courses and kind of getting your lab set up and getting your, tenure package together. So it's definitely challenging. I would say that for me so far, teaching always feels a little more pressing because the students are there in front of you in the classroom or there in office hours, needing support and help. But I think, it's just being very strategic about how you use your time, learning how to say no when appropriate, and really kind of prioritizing what needs to get done and delegating tasks when and where you can.
Sorry, jumping in here. I totally agree. Teaching always feel like more pressing somehow. And what I have learned to do is to sort of merge my teaching with research. So we have independent research course. So when I teach that course, I have students and they're actually pushing my research projects forward. So that's one of the many ways to deal with this.
One of the areas that I found it helpful is to try to recruit students as early as possible during their careers so they can stay longer in your research lab. And that helps saving time in the sense that if you have a scaffolded mechanism to put together your lab and students are at the different stages of their experience, that typically helps if you have a senior student that you can, as just as Dongfeng said, delegate in order to teach the basic techniques or with minimum supervision at least. Even though I would love to spend all my day in the lab, but I can't. I enjoy doing that, but I perhaps cannot do it as much as I used to before teaching at Missouri Western. So that student kind of steps in and takes a leadership role, which also helps them learning through teaching. And that actually helps dealing with, the fragmented time and the gaps that occur in that teaching and research and service schedule assembly.
I try to be really intentional with my scheduling and cluster meetings as much as possible and cluster those other activities to clear out blocks of time that I can protect to do research. A lot of my protocols require like 3 or 4 hours or a whole day, so I try to clear out an afternoon or clear out a day by doing this.
Okay, great. So, those are very helpful tips. We actually just hold a workshop at the ASPB conference about how to manage time at PUI. So, if you are at the ASPB conference in the future, please come join our workshop. So hopefully through these questions, our audience have a pretty good idea of what it takes to establish an independent research lab at PUI, what is a typical life is about as a PUI faculty. And I also want to give some time to our panelists. You don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. Is there some project that you're working on that you're excited about, or perhaps a project you already completed that you're very proud of? It can be research, teaching, or service, anything.
So one of the thing I'm excited to use plant biotechnological tools to create plants that can able to produce interesting metabolites. In our case, it is triacylglycerol that can be used as fuels, even up to the jet fuels to produce carbon neutral energy. In addition, we're also excited to use genomics and even metabolomics opportunities to create a plants they can able to uptake heavy metals. In that way, we can able to create a clean environment. I'm very much excited to see those results coming out and publications and so on.
I met Dongfang at a conference this summer on single cell approaches in plant biology I've just recently gotten into using single cell sequencing by virtue of a senior thesis research project. So that's been very exciting to apply that to my research.
I'm part of a prison education program that I've been participating in the last couple of years, and I feel like being at a PUI kind of allows me to do that. I think in an R1 school, I would probably just be focusing on research and training graduate students and postdocs. But I think schools like ours value putting your efforts in a lot of different areas. So that's something that's been really fun and impactful.
So one of the things I'm very proud of is, since our institution is actually the applied learning institution, designated institution of the state of Missouri, they value very much the applied learning component in our teaching, in our research. And as Dongfeng mentioned, that she's blending and blurring the lines between teaching and research and introducing research into her classroom. I did something similar. I'm teaching 2 upper division plant science classes in plant morphology and plant physiology, and I designed a cure that is a modular cure that starts in plant morphology, which is the first class in the sequence that students take, and then they continue the cure from a physiology aspect in plant physiology. So the scaffolded way of introducing them into actually doing original research gives opportunities to be more inclusive, to involve all the students enrolled in the courses, as well as, of course, gives research experience to everyone. It is a form of applied learning, and I have had some great experience and feedback on this scaffolded cure that I started, I think, about 2 years ago.
I'm still very early on, so my projects are all still kind of being developed, but I'm really excited about the local project that I'm working on. It's my wheelhouse is conservation genomics with rare and endangered plant species. So I'm working with closely with the Atlanta Botanical Garden on a project with a little gooseberry that's native to the Southeast, and I'm really proud that I submitted my first NSF grant as the PI. So that felt really nice. We don't know what's happening with that grant right now, if it'll even be considered, but I got it submitted, so that felt good.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations. So for myself, yes, I met Jeremy at a single cell conference. And this is one part that I'm very excited about is my lab is moving to single cell technique, using that to study plant development. And then I'm actually excited about lots of things. I'm also excited about collaborating with colleagues in the department, how to use AI tools in teaching, not only how we use it, but also how to teach students to use it properly. And a little project I'm excited about is starting a podcast channel with our students to sort of help students build their communication skill. So I feel like PUI faculty, this career path allow you to explore your passions. And we're all pretty happy here. So if this is something that you're also interested in, our next topic is, so how do you put an application package together? So they're usually like a research component, a teaching component. So perhaps we can start with the research statement first. Most of us have served on search committees. So when you are looking through applicants, what are you looking for in a research statement?
I think for us, it's is it something that undergraduates are going to be excited about, or that you can spin in a way that will be engaging for undergraduates who might already be majors or might not know yet what their major is going to be. And then it's ideal if the committee can see how it fragments into smaller projects. So what does a senior thesis look like? What does a first time in the lab project look like? I think those are the big things that we look for.
I'll start with a disclaimer that, again, I'm a visiting professor and have not served on a search committee. So I'm maybe not the most qualified to talk about this, but in talking with colleagues, and at least at Reed, I think, yeah, that you need to demonstrate that you have a good research program, but it needs to fit in the context of an undergraduate training. So you need to, like Brian was saying, can it be broken down into smaller pieces that can work as summer research projects for students or thesis projects for students? And will they be interesting for those students?
So one of the thing is it is very important, like how you're going to use your research knowledge to solve local issues in collaboration with the students. I think that is working very well in our case. That is a key, and at the same time, projects something has to be like student driven type, not too like complicated. That is also very helpful.
I just served on my first search committee last year. It's interesting to like be on the other side of it, but I think from my impressions is that we talk a lot about the teacher scholar model and really seeing someone who has shown that they have the potential to be a teacher scholar or already are a teacher scholar, and that they are productive in their scholarship and have been intentional and mindful about how their scholarship can be implemented at a PUI, just as Brian was saying. But who also is very, I think, serious and mindful about pedagogy as well.
Okay, so yeah, very good point. I would like to add that some similarities between when you apply for PUI faculty versus applying for R1. So your identity as a scientist has to shine through. So that could be, right, so then how do you demonstrate that? Not only your past project, but what would you like to do at PUI, right? So is there a project that you're excited about developing and it would be feasible fitting the sort of the equipment support and facility support at the PUI setting. So seeing that would really pull an applicant forward, in my view. So what about teaching statement? So what type of like teaching experience? Do people have to have teaching experience to be successful as an applicant?
I would jump in here and say that it is not, sometimes it's not absolutely necessary to have extensive prior teaching experience, but in your teaching statement, you do have to highlight specific examples of teaching moments throughout your career, which could be just as much as, for example, teaching students, teaching as a postdoc, teaching PhD students in the lab for doing different kinds of techniques, or having served as a TA for a specific course. I personally did not have as much teaching experience beyond these experiences, but again, it's okay until you understand the meaning of teaching, in the sense that everything can become a teaching moment. So that should be something that is should be shining through your application and through your teaching statement, and especially your love and desire to do so.
I think for me, evaluating teaching statements, and also experience, like certainly looking for experience, but I think even with like minimal experience of having TA-ships, just a strong teaching statement that demonstrates that you're knowledgeable about pedagogy, like contemporary pedagogy, like backward design, student-centered learning, Bloom's taxonomy, kind of demonstrating that interest and kind of fluency in that language, I think, would be appropriate. Because, especially if you're still especially still a graduate student and you're, for example, on fellowship, you just might not have had opportunities to teach. And I think people recognize that that's okay and that's normal. But if you want to be at a PUI, showing that you understand pedagogy and are familiar with it is certainly important. And there are lots of, at all institutions, you know, there are these teaching and learning centers where they have workshops where you can attend and learn about these evidence-based practices.
Yeah, I think everything Zoe said, totally agree with. And I think a willingness to grow. I think teaching is kind of this lifelong experience that you never actually completely master. And so, you know, portraying that you're coming in willing to learn things and try things and reflect on how students are doing is really important.
I'll just quickly add that there's no fixed requirement for some amount of teaching experience at Reed, at least. And I think that rather they look for have you been thoughtful about how your research might connect to teaching and provide opportunities for exciting teaching moments, and certainly that, you know, that humility that teaching is a lifelong learning process and you don't have it all figured out. So I think you do want to demonstrate you're thoughtful about pedagogy and are familiar with that, but don't come across as sounding like you've got it all figured out and you're the best teacher in the world already.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm still learning how to be a better teacher myself. Now we're going to move on to the next section is about the interview process. So if you're invited for on-site interview, there's usually a teaching demonstration and a research talk. So what do we normally look for in a teaching demonstration?
For the research demonstration, you said, Dongfang?
Sorry, but we can start with research as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can start with research. So, for the research talk, does it differ from a typical research talk that you normally give at a conference, or is there a component that you need to include for research talk at PUI interview?
I was on the job market for 2 years, 2021 and 2022, and I gave, I went to a lot of interviews, and in both at like R1s, R2s, PUIs, nonprofits, and I always gave the same research talk. It might have varied a little bit depending on the position that I was applying for. But the part I would really change the most was just at the end, where I would, you know, talk about potential collaborations at that institution and the project that I would want to do at that institution, that I would usually tailor to that institution, in terms of obviously the faculty that I could collaborate with. And then also the project, and ensuring that the project would be appropriate for the resources available at a PUI, and appropriate for undergraduate student involvement.
So one of the thing, what I did during my research presentation, it's like, I kind of narrated a story in a way that I can able to integrate students and each and every component to provide them adequate experiential learning opportunity. Most of the undergraduate focused universities, they look for a kind of faculty research, how much rigorously they can able to integrate students into research to provide experiential learning. So,
I put a little bit of a teaching overlay on my research talk just because you're probably not going to be interviewing in front of plant biologists or even molecular people. Your audience is going to be broad and it might not be all biologists. So if there's anything that could be complicated, it's a teaching opportunity to show, how you would, do your research at a teaching institution.
I think it's really important to showcase the larger picture of your research in terms of, as Brian said, you're not talking to a specialist audience, but you will be talking to scientists who generally tend to look at the bigger picture, showcase applicability, importance of the work that you're planning to do, and especially how it actually integrates into the potential work, how it integrates into the department's work, how you could develop potential collaborations, because very frequently departments are looking for a good fit. I mean, always are looking for a good fit as well, not just research capability. So showing and getting through those aspects is really important.
Yeah, Reed doesn't typically have candidates do a teaching demonstration, so the research talk kind of serves double duty in that regard. And so I think it's important that you can convey the complexity and excitement of your research in a way that's accessible to undergraduates.
So all great points. So for I guess those of us who have teaching demonstrations, so could you share a little bit of experience? Like, what do you look for in a teaching demonstration from the candidates?
I think one of the things that typically a committee, at least I have been on many committees over the years, is looking for is how this person would connect with the students. So the ability to connect with the students, the ability to include applied learning, of course, to share your experience in a way that a student who doesn't necessarily understand yet the very in-depth parts of your work or of the field itself, through connections, we are looking for that.
Okay, great. So my next question is, during this process, what are the most common mistakes that you have seen, that mistakes that could be avoided from the applicants? It could be either research or teaching.
I'd say not knowing what a PUI is, and not pitching your research at the right level, or assuming that you know a lot about teaching, even if you do know a lot. Again, I think it's important to, I think like Jeremy said, express humility. So I think the big thing is just not understanding what a primarily undergraduate institution is and does.
Missing the context, for example. So when you are doing your research presentation, really going into the in-depth details and with jargon that most of your audience would not understand, and the audience is going to be faculty and probably a lot of students as well, could be a big mistake. So that plus the potential involvement. So I'm forgetting, as Brian said, that you're at a PUI institution, so the expectation is that the students will participate in your research.
So one of the thing, is expressing your interest strongly and compassion to help undergraduate students in terms of teaching and also in terms of research. That is very important.
Yeah, so oh, great point. And I think I would like to add one. So this is on one side, not knowing what PUI is. Sort of on the other side of the spectrum is when you do your research or teaching presentation, of course, you give credits to undergraduate students, but it's also important to let your own identity shining through, and that is, as a scientist, that your research is driven by research questions. So yeah, we're really into undergraduate mentoring, but your own identity as a scientist has to come through as well. All right, so the last question in this section is, what type of question should an applicant be asking during an interview process? Interview process is also where you get to know about the institutions. Yeah, so what would the applicant ask?
I think showing an interest in the students is important, like asking where the students are from, what the students in the department are interested in, what kind of jobs they go into. I think shows that like, you are, wanting to connect with those students. I think also for your own benefit, it's important to get a good sense of the culture of the department as well as the culture of the broader institution and just get a sense of if it's a place where you would want to work, where you would want to feel comfortable and supported and where you could, hopefully be there for the rest of your career, right? Is the dream. So asking questions about that to, a variety of different people in the department to kind of compare answers and make sure you're getting just answers that you feel comfortable with, I think is important.
So one of the questions always I curious about in asking is about, for example, what is the startup funding or seed money to kickstart research activity, and also clarity about lab space and more clarity about teaching load. These are very important, I think.
I think maybe following up a little bit on Zoe's answer, asking about a mentoring plan. So what is the department going to do to help you succeed? I think it's becoming more and more of a thing to have a specific structure to that. And they should have good answers.
I think it's really important to ask about what are the specific requirements for tenure and promotion, especially trying to find out what the institution itself values and how that is reflected in those requirements as well. To be aware of where your emphasis should fall to start with from the get-go.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I think I asked most of those questions during my interview. It's like, yeah, I'm going to apply for external funding, but like before that, what are the internal supports? So those are really important questions to ask. It's figuring out, is this a place that you can thrive and be happy and then carry out the research you want to do and carry out the teaching you want to do? So we're coming towards the end. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share with our audience?
I'd like to say, in my experience, I felt that success on the job market was in part a numbers game. Like I applied to literally like hundreds of positions. And I think I got like at the end like 8 offers or something. And so it's the amount of rejection is difficult, but it's normal and like not a reflection on you. But it's a really, really challenging time being on the job market. The uncertainty is really hard. It can really take a toll on your mental health. So, just keep your head up, like as my advice, and be gentle with yourself if you can.
Yeah, I would say, in general, PUIs or HBCUs or minority serving institutions are a great place to work, and also a lot of opportunity to success and a lot of satisfaction for teaching and also for research and so on. I would highly recommend folks to apply for PUIs.
And I would add to what Sanju just said that, for example, when you look at success, right, we often measure success in different ways at different places, but you shouldn't just think of measuring your own success as the number of publications or the number of grants that you received, but it is really the joy of mentoring, the joy of directing these young minds, the joy of forming them is really a success on its own. And it's great seeing your students succeed, great seeing your students apply and be selected for graduate school or to obtain positions in their field. So success comes in so many different forms, and let yourself enjoy that.
I think if this is a career pathway that's interesting to you, then be intentional as a postdoc. So seek out opportunities to teach when they come up, or opportunities to do outreach or work with undergraduates at the bench. I knew at the end of my graduate years that I did not want to be at an R1 school. So when I was interviewing, I had the conversation kind of vaguely with the PI that I might want to try some teaching. And so, some PIs are very open to supporting postdocs on that. So you can do things as a postdoc so that you're really competitive a couple of years in.
I also want to, I'm sorry, just jump in here again and give another plug for PUIs. I feel like in the R1 world, I don't know, there seems to be like some weird hierarchical system, but I think, PUIs for me, working at a PUI has been immensely gratifying. Like I feel like I'm still able to do impactful scholarship and also really impactful teaching and develop meaningful relationships with students that have in some ways, I think, more impacted at a larger scale because we interact with students, so many more students than I think R1 professors. But I don't know, I've always loved teaching and working with people. So for me, the PUI route was, I always knew, and I went to a small liberal arts school, so I'd always knew that it was a route that I was really interested in. And it's challenging, it's I think in some ways more challenging than R1s because we're expected to do high quality research, get external funding, and be really effective teachers who teach a lot and do service. And so it's not as though being at a PUI is just a walk in the park. I think every path in academia is challenging in its own way, and they're all just different, not necessarily better or worse. And just thinking about what path like calls to you more and doing some self-reflection, I think, can be really helpful in figuring out your next steps.
That's great. Thank you for all those this insight. Yeah, we're very happy to have our audience here. So Jason, could you bring up the next slide, please? So before going into the Q&A session, I would like just to put a plug in for PUI. So if you like our content, here's how you can support us. You can like this video on the Plantain YouTube channel and follow ASPB PUI on your social media outlet of your choice. And then if you're feeling more generous, you can also support us with $5 annual membership fee. Please go to puiaspb.org. All right, so now we are going to start our Q&A session. So let's see. Okay. So our first question is, are any of the panelists' home institutions public universities, or are they all private?
So, for example, I'm from West Virginia State University. It is a public land grant, 1890 land grant university.
Missouri Western State University is a public open access state university.
Yeah, and I think the rest of us are all from private liberal arts colleges. So there's three of us here are from HBCUs. So Zoe, myself, and Sanju. So different types of PUI actually have slightly different type of funding sources. But really there's no one is better than the other. It's just like difference where the funding source comes from. All right, so let me see the next question. What types of questions can help assess culture? Maybe I would like a little clarification on this. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next question where I think about this questions a little bit more. All right, so the next question, do I need any type of certification despite, oh, okay. So I think it's talking about teaching certifications. Probably not. Right, so yeah, so we're looking for teaching experiences and also like sort of motivation to be a better teacher, but you don't necessarily need any teaching certification. All right, so then does not mean, okay. Oh, okay, that's an interesting question. Our primary job is to teach, and we need to really study how people learn. Wait, is that a question? Our primary job? Wait, am I looking at? Oh, okay, sorry, sorry about that. Let me go to the next question. So hello, everyone. Are the sponsorship available at PUI? Can immigrant apply for these positions? Okay. So, I mean, as far as I know, our college does sponsor H1 and green card application. So it's certainly open to non-US citizens. So I'm going to say that's marked. So are there criteria of promotion in PUIs? Is it the number of publications and grants? So do anyone want to answer, like take on that question?
Yes, yes, indeed. In addition to publication, grants, teaching commitment, and also service, they do consider all these components.
And it, I
However,
think it, oh, go ahead, sorry.
so I would just add that we are evaluated in those three areas that Sanju mentioned. However, the relative amount of things that go into each one of these categories is quite different at different PUIs. So like, for example, the number of publications might even be different in between departments within the same campus.
I think that's absolutely true. And for some schools, they will want to see independence and publications from your group and maybe a federal grant. For other schools, maybe just beyond a publication, maybe via collaboration. So those are important things to assess when you're interviewing.
Okay, great. All right, so here the next question is, how do you apply for PUI? And I don't have any contact to any PUI faculty. So to apply, actually, most of the PUI jobs are posted on Higher Ed, I would say. And if you go to ASPB PUI LinkedIn page, we also post some of the jobs there. So it's just like applying for any job. You don't have to have like an insider contact. You can just apply to those to those positions. We also have a monthly virtual gathering. So if you have specific questions, please come and join our Zoom session, and we're very happy to answer your questions. So
Can I just put in a plug for the Chronicle of Higher Education? A lot of PUI jobs that are listed there, and there's a lot of really great articles that kind of capture the vibe of colleges across the spectrum. So if you want to learn more, you can read a lot of those articles too.
yeah, thank you. That's a great point. So the next question is actually about what type of questions to ask during an interview process to get a good sense of the culture of the department. I guess, specific questions you want to ask during the interview.
Yeah, I would emphasize on mentoring plan and seed money to start research and lab space.
I would be very, well, when I was interviewing, I was very explicit about asking, can you tell me a little bit about the department culture, or like the culture of your department? How often do y'all get together, and you can get a sense of, usually through people's responses, they'll say like, oh yeah, like everyone gets along really well. Like we get together once a semester at the start of the semester and then at the end of the year. Or like it might be a little more of a subdued response of like, oh yeah, well, we have a lot of different personalities or something like that, So you can ask that question explicitly to a few different folks and try to, I think, come to some kind of consensus.
Sometimes
yeah,
you have,
certainly.
oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Sometimes when they're putting together your interview schedule, you can have some say in it. You could ask to meet with somebody from like an adjacent department, like chemistry or physics. Just maybe you want to think about interdisciplinary things, and that's a great way to get an outside view of the department you're applying to.
Okay, so there are still some questions in the Q&A, but we are already at the 1 hour mark. So we're going to look at all the questions and address them off the air. We will be posting them, so please do follow ASPB PUI on social media outlet, and we're going to announce when we post those answers.
All right. Again, I want to thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Hopefully you found those really helpful. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar session has been recorded, and so similar to all the Q&A materials, we will also post the recording. So if you need to kind of want to revisit some of the points that were made or have a friend that might find this resource helpful, you can rewatch the recording and pass it along. But other than that, I hope you all learn from this session. Again, a big shout out to all our panelists. Thank you for sharing your insight, your experience, and I hope everyone have a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you on the next one. Again, there's a lot of events the PUI section are hosting, so stay tuned, especially those monthly gatherings that Dongfang and Brian kind of plug. It's a helpful gathering where you could kind of connect with folks that are sort of interested in the PUI space. But other than that, I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.